All right, week 7 college football breakdown here. Good little late night action here in the Pac-12. Washington State traveling to Corvallis, taking on the Beavers of Oregon State. Seeing Oregon State as 3.5 point home favorite and a pretty standard total of 52.5. Right off the bat, Chance Nolan, who's Oregon State's usual starting quarterback, he was out last week. And I don't expect him to play in this game. He's played a lot of good football for him. I don't see a huge drop off, particularly between him and Ben Goldbrinson. Goldbrinson led Oregon State back in a huge, 3 possession comeback win last week against Stanford. And yeah, they only scored 10 points in the first 3 quarters. It's still pretty impressive on the road for a guy that young and inexperienced to come in, be able to deliver like that. And his main action this year is come at Utah, at Stanford. He's at 9 yards per attempt. That's pretty good, to be quite frank with you. So I actually like Ben Goldbrinson quite a bit. Still, though, this is an Oregon State offense that's predicated on running the football. No, they don't. I don't think they have a BJ Baylor on this roster like they did last year, but they're good up front. And, they are going to be able to establish their run game on most teams. Washington State's defense is pretty feisty, though. We've seen what they've done against the run in a pretty similar matchup, actually, going up against Wisconsin. They did a good job against Braylon Allen. They forced that game into Graham Mertz's arm. We saw what happened there. Now, Wisconsin did move the ball pretty well in that game, and turnovers and just kind of stalled drives did kind of hurt them there. Wisconsin outgained Washington State by, I want to say, 150 yards. So Wisconsin outplayed them, but this Washington State defense is feisty. We even saw it a little bit last week, and that was more so with their secondary. Caleb Williams did not play very well against Wazoo last week. Give that Cougars defense credit. This is going to be another tough matchup for Jonathan Smith and company. I'm really not a huge fan of this Washington State offense. I backed them last week at USC, played horrible down the stretch in that second half. Kind of a theme with this Washington State team. I get it. It's been a good start for them, and they've certainly exceeded expectations, but I don't know how sustainable what they've shown to this point is because, they got clearly outgained in that game in Madison, still able to win. They were outgained in a pretty similar fashion against Oregon, kept that game close. I get that comparing yard totals is not everything, but when you see that theme over time and, teams aren't paying for it, it does kind of raise a little bit of a red flag. We know this is an air raid system, and so, it's not really a balanced offense. Even if it is a pass-first offense, you'd love for the running game to be a little bit better than it is, and I particularly don't like that offensive line. I think that offensive line and their tougher matchups is pretty attackable. That's not a very tough matchup, though, on paper at least. Don't really like what Oregon State has shown within their defensive front this year. It's been pretty good against the run. Once again, it doesn't really factor into this matchup because Washington State is clearly a pass-first team. We knew how bad Oregon State's secondary was a year ago. We saw that they were able to, really stymie Caleb Williams a few weeks ago. But in other matchups, teams have been able to establish the pass. Something's got to give here. I think we'll find out a lot about Oregon State. It's been kind of a weird few weeks for them. Should have beat USC, threw 4 picks, just missed out on winning that game. They go out and get blown out at Utah. And then at Stanford last week, seemed as if, things were really starting to fall apart. They come back and win that game. It's been kind of a roller coaster over 3 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon State comes in and just kind of controls this game from start to finish. It's Washington State's second straight road game. They're coming off that game against USC. Well, we saw how Oregon State, fared in that spot, getting blown out at Utah. Ultimately, though, I don't feel good enough about this Oregon State defense, and I don't really want to put my trust necessarily in this backup quarterback this early into his tenure, especially given that Washington State's defense very well may be the best unit on the field. Tough game to handicap. Gut feeling is Oregon State does find a way to win and cover here, but I don't bet gut feels, so ultimately I'll lay off of this game. All right, guys, before we get out of here, I know you see this shirt right here. If you're in the market for some new golf apparel, check out Proud 90 Golf. Unique, very comfortable polos as well. With the cold weather coming, they've also got a great selection of hoodies and quarter zips. If you see anything you like, at proud90.com, use my promo code Fordham at checkout. It's going to get you 15% off your order. Check the description for more information.